by the time I went to For Rent magazine, it was September 5th of 2001, and 11 days later, the trade centers fell, and I'm in New York. And I only say that because that market was so affected, real estate was so affected. There was a lot of opportunity for sales in marketing of apartment communities. So I certainly credit that with a very heavy heart. I was downtown at the time, with how that influenced my career.
From apartment guides to residential leadership, Amy Barricelli transformed sales expertise into human-centered property management at RR Living. Her authentic approach, sitting with residents in their homes and championing team success over metrics, redefines industry standards. Balancing 6 rescue dogs, a Winnebago for family trips, and early morning flights, Amy embodies her personal philosophy. I don't create a life I need a vacation from.
I refuse to let stress take anything over in my life. I've had those moments, we all have, but for me, it's been more like my mother had an aneurysm. That was stressful. I'm not gonna let low occupancy get me stressed. We're gonna go in there, we're gonna figure it out. I am absolutely that person that would say to my team members, I'll just take it. Because I'm passionate and believe that there are things that we can still do differently or better when it comes to, the basics of our roles.
How do you express your emotions when you're stressed?
Oh, that's a good question.
Amy, welcome to the show.
Shiv, thanks for having me.
I know. I feel like I got to spend the whole day with you.
I know. That was exciting. Thank you for coming over to our corporate office and speaking to our team members and learning more about what we do. It was great for us.
Yes. Thank you for lunch.
Anytime.
Okay. So let's start with a little bit about your upbringing and your background, maybe where you grew up. Yeah, we'll go from there.
Oh, cool. Great. Because I could talk about myself all day. So.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Well, I'm from South Jersey, but I often refer to it as Philadelphia because the Jersey Shore show really ruined that for me. I have to make people understand a little bit more that it's little different areas. So grew up in South Jersey, and I spent the majority of my time there. Eventually moved to New York and Chicago, and but bought a house back a block from where I grew up eventually. And after spending 22 years in the same house that I bought in 1999, I'm only 22. I finally decided to move, and it was probably like everybody during the COVID timing of everything, taking a good look at my decisions and thinking, why am I waiting until I retire for my dream home? Or, let's expand and figure out how to get there. So, so my upbringing was pretty much a regular divorced child. Parents are teachers, but, very uneventful.
What did they teach?
My mother's an English teacher,
eventually
a principal, and her husband was a superintendent, but initially he was a science teacher. So, and they both taught at my grade school.
When did they divorce?
My parents divorced when I was almost 13.
Okay.
Yep. So 12 and a half, 13 or so.
Not completely uneventful, I guess. How was that?
No, it was fine. I think, it's funny. I think I led then a bit of a life saying, I'm going to devote my time to my work, and I'm not interested in having, marriages and children and things that eventually I put off some of that so long. I am married now. But again, being 22 years old, jokingly, of course, but, I don't have children and I'm not going to be having children. So that kind of stuff, I think, maybe played a part in it. Originally was thinking, I don't want to have a family life that would be broken potentially, for my children. But I think in retrospect, I think there were a lot of Gen Xers who dealt with some of that and had different experiences as a result. But yeah, we managed. I don't think I know many people whose parents weren't divorced by the time we look back, and I hope yours aren't.
No, they aren't. But 50, I think America has like a 50% divorce rate or something.
It has to be. Absolutely.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one biological, although I would refer to all of them as my siblings. I'm the oldest. And so my youngest sister, who's actually a stepsister, would only have known, that I was not her biological sister because we let her know. She was that young. But we have a 10-year span between all of us. So,
So at 13, you're 8th grade, around 7th grade, 8th grade. what happened after that? So where did you have to, because you probably lived with one of them.
I did. I think it's funny. They were originally discussing a week with each parent. And back then that was just not heard of. And I think parents nowadays probably do it better than that. So I was with my mother, and it was super important to me because we were living in a place that was that had the not greatest school district. I'll say that. It wasn't where my parents were teaching, of course, but the high school worried me. So I made it a point to apply to a prep school. And I went to Bishop Eustace Prep
on your own.
On my
You
own.
made the decision on your own.
And I took out loans, which were $4,000 a year.
Wait, for high school?
Yes. So by the time I even went to college, I had already accrued $16,000 in high school loan debt.
Why did you want, because you just wanted...
I didn't want to go to the local regional school.
Yeah.
For I think a lot of reasons. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad had mentioned that was, an impressive prep school and things that just stuck with me. So I wanted to make sure I went. I don't know that it made a difference in my life now. I'm sure it didn't make a difference in my life now, but it was important to me. So I had always also been in private schools. So I wanted to continue that. I don't think that there was any other reason than I just knew it, kind of how we were raised. And while none of that really plays into my life today, it's, made sure that it was preparing me to go to college, even though not everybody that I was growing up around was going to college.
What was your parents' reaction to you wanting to go to the school? Were they supportive?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because of the divorce, they didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
So as long as we could make it work and I was willing to do what it took, then absolutely. You actually took an entrance exam. So on a Saturday, I had to, in 8th grade, had to go take an entrance exam to get into the school. Wow. But I was, it's funny. I haven't thought about this in decades, but it was something important to me back then.
How would you describe your internal monologue going in your teens, after the divorce happened? Like, were you, because on the surface, or at least my interpretation is you're very positive, you're super, outgoing and easy to talk to and easy to relate to. Does that reflect?
I would not say so. In my teenage years, I probably was like everybody, just not listening to the parents and going to do it my way. And what do they know? Now my mother's my best friend. I couldn't imagine without her. So no, I certainly played the divorce. If you don't do it my way, I'm going to go to dad's, which I wasn't. No, I was extraordinarily independent, took my siblings under my own wing and did what I could for them. If we were going on a vacation with my father, we didn't live with him. It was really me like preparing the meals and stuff for my sister. So I probably grew up fast.
Was money, you mentioned that after the divorce, money was tough. Was that something you thought about?
No, you know what was more, my mom used to, and again, I just thinking about it this now, I wouldn't have really put any credence to it before this conversation, but since my young childhood, I remember thinking that I wanted opportunities that maybe are just not always available where I was stationed in life, whether that is that I wanted to become the president of the United States or on the Supreme Court, which would have been the first woman on the Supreme Court back then. I didn't know, so for me, it was much more like, don't get in trouble, don't get tattoos, all the things that you're kind of ingrained. So I would try to be as independent and, kind of authoritarian to some degree as I could be in my teenage years, still recognizing that I wanted to have a career and establish myself. I wasn't sure how or, what that would look like long term, but I was always kind of in my mind, thinking about how I could afford a suit to go to an interview, things like that.
Did school come easy or hard to you? Academics?
It was easy. I didn't take science classes, right? Like I majored in English and literature too. Yeah. Eventually I went to, I went to college, I went to graduate school, and then I also went to Oxford for a postgraduate program and then finished that master's at Villanova. But back then, and I say this all the time now, I swear things changed 5 or 6 years later. It was, you kind of didn't need to know what you wanted to do. Right. So I did kind of fall into marketing, or I always refer to myself as an old school salesperson, and try to make it so that doesn't have a negative connotation. Because it doesn't matter what it is, I want to sell it, right? Whether it's me or air or whatever, I just want to be around people and engage. So
wait, why is that actually? I'm curious.
Why do I?
Yeah, why do you feel that?
Oh, I like the connection of it. I think we were talking earlier today even about how Zuma can, manage away a lot of the administrative monotony of different roles. Those roles would have made me miserable, right? Like sitting there in an office, data entry, that would have made me insane. So when I love being at the communities, I love to be out, talking to the residents. I love to be dealing with our team. I sit right down, pull the chair up right in front of the leasing desk, where, maybe others are setting up in the back office so they can also get their work done. But I just want to be part of what's happening. So, but I'm also the person who will go to a restaurant at night, and by the time we leave, my husband and I, we've made friends out of whoever's sitting close enough to us. So I just part of my personality, I suppose.
How would your parents describe you, your personality?
I think they'd say I'm assertive. I think they'd say that I am direct, and I think they'd say that overall I'm very passionate about the thing. And that's probably part of that salesman-esque quality too. I am passionate. There are things I truly believe in, and I want to bring the world in on that positivity and things I know to happen and be great, like how much better we do things at my company, or how much better this particular option or opportunity is, or just, having a great time with family. So I think I don't think they'd always say I'm positive. It's funny, I won a Spirit Award here my first year at RR Living, and it was voted on by some of the team members, and it's part of the responsibilities of my position. So I certainly say that there were others I would say were more deserving, but when I took that home and said it to my husband, he was like, oh, they don't see you Friday at 4:00, do they? Right, so I know that there's both sides to me, but no, I think that they would refer to me more as driven, professional.
It's something that I noticed about you pretty much immediately. And even I feel like Melanie also has this too, where you guys are just like super charismatic and easy to talk to and easy to get along with.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I feel like the amount that I can make this whole podcast about Melanie, but we'll be cognizant of that timing. But the amount that I've learned in my approach and, the patience level that it takes at times to make sure that we're, providing the successes that the team needs. Melanie is a dynamo because I don't know who mentored her to learn those things, but I can absolutely give her credit, detailed credit. So
how do you deal with stress then? How do you deal with the times when things are heated? And then also, how do you express your emotions when you're stressed?
Oh, okay, good. So I like to, and I'm not going to say this is a perfect scenario, but I refuse to let stress take anything over in my life. I've had those moments. We all have. But for me, it's been more like my mother had an aneurysm at one point, a brain aneurysm. That was stressful. I'm not going to let low occupancy get me stressed. We're going to go in there. We're going to figure it out. I am absolutely that person that would say to my team members, I'll just take it. Not because you can't, but you have things going on. I'll come over and help out. I'll do what I can. Because I'm passionate and believe that there are things that we can still do differently or better when it comes to, the basics of our roles. So I have a mantra that at one point I was, using it as hashtags everywhere, and probably started using this about 15 years ago. But it's important to me that I'm not creating a life that I need a vacation from. I do not want to work looking forward to the weekends. If this isn't where I wanted to be, I wouldn't be here. I hate to overly simplify it. I do not get up to go to work in the morning. I get up to go to life in the morning, and I don't think you can fake the amount of travel that I have, or the responsibilities, or like you said, the stress of meeting with owners or whatever it can be, if you weren't meeting it with an excitement level or, kind of some passion or something innate that happens. So for me, it's innately something I want to do. Now, did I want to get up this morning at 3 Eastern to catch the flight? I was tired. So I don't want to make it seem silly, but obviously, like for me, our vacations or my de-stressing time is going to be just at home on the days when it makes sense for us to be home. Usually it's a weekend. I live on the river. My husband and I spend time on his boat, a lot of time, as much as, and just sitting on the dock and watching the water is enough therapy, sometimes very therapeutic. So for me, it's not a matter of things becoming too stressful. Maybe it's because I have a Melanie and she bears the brunt of it with me. So we keep each other well in check. But otherwise, I don't think I'm, getting too worked up about things too frequently.
How did you meet your husband?
eHarmony. Is that still around?
I think so.
I have no idea. eHarmony. And I really liked being single. I had a lot of fun. I work hard. I play hard. I owned my house from a young age and just lived the way I wanted to live and traveled and all that stuff. And I didn't really think I wanted to be in a relationship, certainly not a marriage. But when a friend of mine was on eHarmony and met somebody who she decided she needed to find out if he was really talking to somebody else or whatever the case may be, we put my profile up. We wanted to see what was going to happen with my profile on there. And lo and behold, I met my husband.
Why do you guys connect?
Oh, he is the opposite of me. So he's introverted, but understanding of my extroverted personality. I think he puts up with some of my crazy ideas. 2-3 days ago, I wasn't going to be in Dallas this week. Certainly, I think we just talked about it. I'm still going to figure out which hotel I'm staying in because I just decided last minute to pack a bag this morning and stay overnight. He lets me live how I want to live. And I understand that every marriage and relationship has compromise, but we're not giving anything up of ourselves. We're bringing out each other's best. And I do like in our time when we're out on the water together and on the boat to exactly that, because he has an engineer mechanic's mind. So he's on the boat and he's listening for things and he wants to, go down below and figure out this or that. Gaskets or something. I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to dumb it down, but it has to be dumbed down for me. Meanwhile, I just want to make botinis and, take gorgeous pictures and put my feet in the water and chillax with him. So even in the moment when we're supposed to just be having these one-on-ones, it's not that we're one-on-one and therefore we can't still be ourselves. We complement what each other has and offers and all.
So I also recently discovered you have 6 dogs.
Currently, I have 6 dogs.
You have 6 dogs.
Yes.
And you also have a Winnebago?
I do have a Winnebago. Hence the need for the Winnebago is the 6 dogs. Because I'm from the Northeast and now live in Florida, for me to travel is nothing, right? I can easily go up and see my nieces and do whatever I need to do, all that good stuff. But when my husband and I want to travel together, to this day, we haven't had a honeymoon. And I remembered.
Why is that?
It's not important to us. We got married on a boat. We not on our boat, but we chartered.
Spontaneously.
Yeah. Well, we chartered a yacht up in Philly and just had the way we wanted. I used to just a party on the boat. It doesn't matter to me how it, if you're throwing the bouquet or if you're just, dancing and enjoying friends. For me, it was that. We were in our 40s. Again, I'm only 22. But we were in our 40s by the time we met. So we knew who we were. We knew what we wanted. We both brought our life into this. So we had homes and we had dogs and we had responsibilities and careers. So we weren't learning together. We were just going to figure out how, if at all, we'd merge and live that together and forge forward. So for the dogs, yes, we originally had 4, but through the last 10 years, we're 9.5 years together now. So last almost 10 years, we had started to take in the dogs that nobody else wanted. So our dogs are blind and or deaf, or blind and deaf, which is a very unique challenge. I have a 3-legged fox. It's a dog that looks like a fox. We have cancer and heartworm positive and all these things. But these dogs, if nothing else, I've lost 3 in this whole, 9.5 years. And if they go in the comfort of our home and with us, then, I'd be happy with that. So some we've brought home when they've been much older. Nobody was going to adopt them. A couple we've gotten younger. So, we have one right now that has terrible epilepsy. So,
How much harder is it to take care of?
well, fortunately, my husband works from home. So, and again, like I said, he's always accommodating my insanity of whatever, wherever I want to be or go to or whatever the case may be. I think I told him as he was dropping me at the airport this morning at 4:45 that I found a therapeutic retreat I'm interested in for a weekend. See ya. Right. So, so he puts up with it, but he luckily, like I say, is more of a homebody. There's nowhere he wants to be other than at the home. He is regimented with how the dogs get their medicines and everything that they need. So he's a very good dog dad. And I get to just come home and let them pile up on me when I am there. Again, like I said, that's my vacation. That's all that really does matter to me is because I think I'm working hard at, creating a life that I don't wish away, hope for the weekends or how fast can I get out of here or any of those kinds of crazy things. I want to enjoy everything. As a result, we've found a way to make it all work with the dogs. But when we were going one Christmas 2 years ago up to New Jersey and visiting family, at the time we only had 4 dogs. And we were trying to figure out how to get 4 dogs to my mother's house, who was already hosting a lot of my family. So we'd also have to stay somewhere. And not a lot of hotels want 4 dogs. So we'd always talked about maybe getting some kind of an RV. We would, had no idea what it would look like. And then we ended up pulling the trigger and got an old Winnebago that has been kind of refurbished. Like I said, my husband's into the mechanics of everything. So he's brought it back to life, and it was already in pretty good shape, but he's made it really ours. But we actually also have a destination trailer, so we can tow that around as well. But they're both 40 feet. One's 41, so they're big. I won't drive them. Yeah, I'm not driving any of that. So
wow.
Yeah.
And where all have you taken it?
So the Winnebago, we have taken 3 times to New Jersey for family and once to Salado, Texas, which is about 2.5 hours south of Dallas. And we set up shop for a month because I knew I wanted to be really ingrained in one of our communities that's in the lease-up process. And what better way to do it than to live there? So I said I can, go back and forth, but I'm expecting that I'll want to be there, even on weekends. I want to be the one working. I want to see what's happening with traffic. I want to be engaging the residents. So we packed up the dogs and we found an RV park that accommodated us and it was in August. It was 107 degrees before any heat index. It was a true testament of whether we could get along or not. But we had fun. It was a 2-day trip. So we made the most of it up and back.
I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned you don't have kids. And
No.
Did you ever want to have kids?
No.
What is that decision-making process like?
Yeah, and it's funny. I've talked about this. In fact, some of what it still amazes me. And I know that it sounds odd, I believe. To me, it doesn't. It sounds odd, I believe, because I'm still in awe of women who have found success, who work full time, and have found a way to have families. And it's not to take anything away from the men, just what I happen to know, because I didn't know how to do any of that. So I put it off and put it off and put it off until, got so far along that it didn't necessarily either become something I was thinking about or prioritizing. I never prioritized it. And I think, I've said this before, all of a sudden you get to an age where the decision's kind of made for you. And we could adopt, we could do, my sister has adopted, we're a big adoption family, and that would be fine too. We just haven't, I don't feel like I'm missing anything, but I recognize that I am. It's not my mind, of course, my brain recognizes it, but I'm not feeling like a gap or something in my heart. And I think that's because I'm so close to my family, very close to my nieces and nephews. I get them as much as I want, which is also nice because I also don't have to take them if I don't want to. And all of my maternal instincts I put right into these crazy dogs and all their ailments. So I don't feel like I'm lacking.
Okay, so you haven't thought about?
I haven't. No. And when it's come up in the past, and people have even said, well, even if you guys decided you could adopt or things, and it just hasn't been anything that we've. And my husband has no children. So to be meeting in your 40s and neither of you have children is unusual, potentially unusual.
Is that his first, second marriage?
This is actually both of our second marriages. But my first one, I eloped on a random Tuesday morning in Jamaica, not in like a destination wedding, just on a, random beach. And that marriage lasted 7 weeks. I was with him for a while. But yeah, that didn't last. So
When was that?
I was, 15, 16 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I said I was pretty happy being single. It's all I've really, I don't want to say all I've ever known. Of course, I've had relationships, but the relationships worked around my life versus me figuring out how to build a life with somebody. And I think that's why my husband and I have figured it out. And the funny part is his name is Jamie. My name is Amy. So it's not lost on me. I mean, when I saw him on eHarmony and thought, maybe I'll respond, I really had to think about the fact that our names rhymed. That's an undertaking for a lifetime together. So, but no, I mean, he's just so easygoing. So that helps.
What do you feel like people misunderstand about you?
Oh, that's a good question. I recognize an empathetic side of me that has probably at our living, they've only seen that. But coming up and working at different companies and escalating my career, I used to have that much more. If you don't like it, or I have to do it for you, there are options. Versus, let me make sure I prepare this person for success. It helps nobody. If I lose this person, I obviously thought they were competent at some point, and we got to make sure that they get on that track. So I think that if you knew me back 4, 5, 6 years ago, you would think of me as that person that maybe, handles the tougher jobs to make the tougher decisions, et cetera. Whereas now, I don't remember the last time. I want my teams to be extraordinarily successful, even if that means I'm sacrificing to do it for them in some cases. It's that what I refer to with my teams as a reminder, my managers specifically when they're working with their team members, is to take these people on the journey, right? So we may see clearly why there's a policy, a procedure, an expectation, a goal, but that doesn't mean everybody does. And not everybody hears it the same. So having to bring people along on the journey of what you want them to take out of that conversation, it can be exhausting and it's not the quickest path. And sometimes it's easier just to say, if you don't like it, there's the door, which is absolutely, not of value to anybody. But really, like I said, I worked with Melanie for about 6, 7 years, and I've seen how she has turned around different scenarios. I mean, going into that in depth, but and I've been privy to be part of those conversations where I thought the conversation might go a particular way, and the amount of dedicated time, interest, effort, and authentic care, that Melanie put into what was happening in those scenarios, I really kind of watched and thought, look what you just got. I thought we had to write off this situation, or this wasn't going to be somebody who's going to be successful long term. And she did it. Oh, absolutely.
People have been turned around.
100%. And multiple, we're not talking about, because usually it's not nobody wants to be a failure in their position. Nobody wants to not, it's getting to the heart of what the issue is. And there's, anybody can just be friendly with work peers, et cetera. But when there's a genuineness to understanding people's circumstances or moments, and they don't have to share any of that. I don't need to know that somebody, dog is sick at home, or, something going on personal with their parents or something, because we all have that kind of stuff. But just recognizing that this person needs to hear something, be given grace, understand it from a different perspective, not have a short fuse is probably, I think I look back at my 30s and I can say I was, and also because I'm a salesperson mentality, I think I can close it, move it, kind of just wanting people to move at my pace. So I actually much prefer moving at people's paces. So that would be one that I would say they probably have a misunderstanding about. I have some responsibilities that make me move at different paces at times, but ultimately, in a perfect scenario, I would like the interaction that I can have with my team or my family that brings us onto the same talking points or the same place that they're already in, because I learn so much from them. The amount that I learn from them is, learning every single day. And I ever expect that to stop. So the more I can be around people and see things, I'm not even talking about how much the industry has changed, let alone how much you learn in just a demo environment anymore. But, the opportunity to spend time with different people who handle things and view things differently, it opens my eyes up to things. So, and I want to hear them.
I find that really interesting. Can you change somebody's motivation, do you think? Or is it just I guess I'd love to learn, in an example of where somebody's been changed, what does that normally look like?
Yeah, I don't know that it's motivation. I think it's meeting them where they are.
Okay.
So I don't want to change anybody anyway, but we had an agreement from the beginning when we interviewed together. Or if you're not on the team that I directly oversee, then somebody had this conversation with you in which we agreed that you were going to handle the following responsibilities, achieve the following goals or expectations. If it's falling short, let's have the honest conversation about why. I'll tell you, think of it this way. The market today, this last year and a half has been rough. The amount of people who could have seen, and I'm referring to the property management level. So our managers or our service technicians, our leasing professionals, our support staff who could have been downsized or who could have felt the effects of an entire market. We have a market in Mission, Texas. We have, an area there where that was affected by politics, border patrols, things like that. So does that team deserve to be penalized, or can we meet halfway? We'll always meet anyway so that we can figure out what's more they can use or how to market better, lead gen, et cetera. But what else can you, it's draining for the team to feel like they're not able to achieve either. And that's not what anybody wants, So I'm going to say we, because I am referring to what I believe to be really the core leadership here at RR Living, but we truly try to lead with the intention of positive understanding, and it's not always that easy. There are people who will take advantage of things, certainly, but ultimately we all got into this together. Nobody wants to go looking for other jobs or be unsuccessful in any way. So let's figure out what is it going to take to get us where we need to be. That approach, I go back to 20 years ago when it was that fear-based, hit those numbers or else. And I've had plenty of that experience. Now, for me, I rose above it, right? That was the motivating factor. I'm going to get it done. And that's that, type A personality. Not everybody responds to that. And there are some, but why lead with anything negative? We work too hard, or we life too hard. Like I said, there's some silly words that are just becoming catchphrases, like culture, right? Like everybody has a great company culture because you gave me ice cream on a Friday. That does not mean it's a great company culture. Great company culture is a place I want to be, period. I want to be heard. I want to be satisfied. I want more days than not where the paycheck doesn't matter. And I have to make a living. So in no way do I mean that my paycheck is negotiable or anything that to that fact. But I want people who want who are like-minded, right? Who want to be energized by what we do. It is a powerful responsibility to provide a home. And I didn't know that. Originally, I was in the industry. I was working at the apartment guides and the apartments.com, so those kinds of things when I started my career. So I didn't do the traditional leasing professional part-time, up to through an assistant manager to a manager. I came from the partner vendor side, and I remember coming in, and I learned so much by being unlearned, right? Like not knowing the industry, not knowing what I didn't know. So. To me, it is, we spend so much time with each other. I see these people more than I see family or, friends. And I don't want my life to be surrounded by things I have to do. I want to be there. So if you're approaching that, I know the people do too. Everybody has options. We can all go out and interview elsewhere. We want to not just retain their best talent, but we also want to make sure that good people who want to do right by our residents are part of our team. That's been our biggest focus. So I think that's a big change of how I've adapted, kind of going from that old school kind of corporate mentality that you hit numbers. It is what it is. You don't have to love it, la, la, la. And getting introduced to how Melanie approaches. And even in the beginning with Melanie, because I remember when I first worked with her, and this is a prime example of what I think can kind of explain what I believe sets our Living and Melanie specifically apart. But in our industry, there is a lot of turnover. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. So when she was coming in to run a company I was at, there very well could be a lot of questioning and finger pointing, right? So if, when a position opens up, it's not uncommon to say, oh, now we found out that person wasn't doing this, or I don't know why they've ever made that decision. That's silly. When Melanie came in, and obviously we were looking for somebody at her level because we needed that person. She didn't come in and question why things were done or make anybody who was there feel like they didn't get something right at the time. And she even said, I bet you that answer, I bet you tarping that building was the right answer at the time. Now that I'm here, we're going to remove the tarp, we're going to finalize the process, and we're going to get through this, project. So her perspective of giving people grace, which she didn't even have to say, I was just the witness of how she was approaching everything, and people who could have been worried, maybe I didn't make good decisions, maybe this person's going to come in and want things done differently and I won't have a place here. Didn't feel that way at all. Everybody felt very safe that we can bring ideas and collaborate and be honest and say, it's not perfect, but at the time, this is how we were asked or a decision was made to run this way. And it wasn't that she would make it seem like we weren't doing well enough. That was, so from my perspective, she's always been somebody who she sees the good in people innately. So she wants to help them rise, help them be the best person that they can be. And when you lead like that, or in my example, like I said, I've known her so long now, and personally, know her family. She knows mine because we spend so much time together. You can't not be reflective of each other, right? So things that like I said, wouldn't have known I needed to improve upon as a leader, I didn't go out to improve. It just started to kind of come naturally and the more I engaged in this gracious way of understanding that it's not about the fact that I just told you this 3 times last week, but you may need to hear it 5 times. You may need extra time with somebody. I'm okay to not be perfect in every way, and I show that to them every day. I actually go out of my way sometimes to say to them, I'm not the best operator. I'm not the best this. So I'm going to find the person who's going to get you that answer. So they can see that I don't need them to be perfect. We are generalists in our industry, expecting to have specific, we're expected to do things that most industries aren't asking of others. So we've got to be really understanding of that. And again, providing somebody with a home, that's, to me, it is right up there with, and I know how I sound, but I will say there are very few things in life we need. And your home is where your memories are made. It is where you bring your children home the first time. It is where, or your dogs. This is important. Now, we work in those homes, and that can be a little rub at times. But if we start perceiving it differently and start approaching it the same way we'd want it to be approached. I walked to an apartment with somebody, one of my team members on Monday, and we sat down with a resident and spent an hour with that resident in her home. And by sitting there, the place looked amazing, right? It smelled like she had just cooked. It looked great, but she'd had an experience that she wanted to share. If we as a team are quick to dismiss it, we just missed an opportunity. We sat there for over an hour. We listened to everything she had to tell us. We engaged with her. Now she's on Google. Now, that wasn't the intent. I didn't hand her a card and ask her to. But her perspective was, I don't remember ever renting an apartment where somebody sat down in my own home to say, I now have seen too many service requests for me to feel like you're getting what you need. Let me hear from you. How's it going? What can we do for you? So that kind of approach, I drove 3.5 hours up that day and 3.5 hours back from that community because it was that important for the team to witness that that's what we do. And I'm not, I hate to even say that because it sounds like we're bragging or we're making a point that's, I hope, industry standard. But that's really where our leadership is expected to be. You get out there, you don't go and park your butt in the back, and get on your Zoom calls. You are part of the fabric of that team, and you need to know what is happening with your residents primarily and your asset secondarily. It's just as important for those owners listening. No, it is. But your residents will take care of the asset, if you're taking care of them. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, if there is something we lose sleep at night about, and I'm, again, noting all of our senior leadership, it is how do we figure out a way to do it differently and better when we still see like pieces of it not connecting, right? Like how can we give people back time? How can we, Melanie has added volunteer days, paid holidays, extra paid holidays so that we, have even more time, short-term, things that matter in people's lives. And that's great because it's you can check the box. We have now our wellness, so we can certainly, apply our principles into our procedures, which is wonderful. But that doesn't mean that you're not, still obsessing over that one issue that you lost the resident, that one issue where the team member didn't hear you the way you wanted them to be hearing you. But you're going to go back and you're going to figure it out and bring them on the journey.
No, it's incredible. And I think what you're saying is completely right. I think a lot of people, when we make decisions, sometimes we think we're making decisions from like a logical place.
Yeah.
Where to live. But oftentimes, and I think this is where the humanness is so important, is when a leasing agent is doing a tour or, management is going and talking to residents, creating that emotional connection is really impactful.
It really is. I shop properties a lot, right? So I was telling a story. I was in Jackson, Mississippi. And this is just within the last month. And I had shopped 9 properties that day. And I very much felt like nobody was interested in renting me an apartment. They answered my questions, but it was kind of like, can I at least see an apartment? No, kind of nobody was getting up and touring me at this particular subset of, this is not a Jackson, Mississippi comment, but in this one subset. And my last tour was phenomenal. I mean, this person, what matters to you in a home, which again, is just part of the scripted expectation we ask of our leasing professionals. But all of a sudden I wanted to talk to her about what I want in a home, and then I wanted to share a little bit. And, she was so engaging. And even though I wasn't going to rent because I was there to shop her, I would have rented. I actually thought about like this. I don't want this person now to not get this lead. I feel terrible. Her closing ratio is going to be affected by me because she deserved it. And it was innate. It was just something that she wanted. She wanted to be there. She really just enjoyed it. She wanted to let me know why she loves her community. I'd venture a guess that she probably even lives there. So to her, it's that important to set her property up, apart from others. And there's so much responsibility at a property that gets lost. That's the first thing to go. That personalization can often be, we just asked a resident to sign another year's lease, which is their longest, biggest bill. We could have had an increase. They may not see the value in it. And our answer is, an email back and forth. No, sit down and have a cup of coffee. Sit down, talk to us, tell us where we can improve. What are you looking for? Next thing I know, we've done some of these. We had done those bagged breakfasts that the industry does sometimes when you're leaving and entering the community. So you have a cute little, not my favorite thing because it's not really engaging, but I do like that the residents take some value in it and they're rushing out the door in the morning. I completely understand. But it turned out when we were sitting down with somebody recently, they missed that. And we just thought, let's have a Chick-fil-A breakfast next week for our residents. We'll have some of the bags, available in the clubhouse. We'll hopefully get some in. And then a couple of us will just stand there and be able to pass them out. And it wouldn't have been anything I would have thought to put on a marketing strategy board or anything like that. And while we're doing it, obviously to hopefully keep residents retained as long as possible, it also just, we don't know everything. It was nice to have that little bright moment. Listen to your residents, spend the time where you can with them.
I want to talk a little bit about your origin story into multifamily. You mentioned you studied English. How did you fall into this industry, as everybody says?
I know. Well, so when I was going to school, there was no academic property management option. I wouldn't have ever known what it was, but yes, I was working at Waste Management and I was selling trash service. It was a full commissioned position that I just started because a family friend knew somebody looking for that job. It was, I hate to say easy, but you just kind of plugged in data into a matrix and you would beat what the pizza shop was already being charged by a competitor, and you would pretty much get a business, unless, of course, they were at a 3-year contract, which was always the problem. But anyway, I was a full commissioned salesperson, account executive, they probably called that. And with that, I was actually able to buy my first house. So, and without salary. But again, this is a very different time. This is not, I think these things happen today. So I was applying to positions that had a base plus, that were still in sales. And I answered an ad. Actually, the person who placed it and hired me is still in the industry.
Wow.
Yeah, she's great. And shout out Sherry Burnham. Okay. She's married with a different last name, so it doesn't apply. But I ended up, without knowing what I was doing or understanding the industry at all, what I did was I applied to a position about 2 hours away, meaning the office was 2 hours plus the territory itself was up to 4 hours. But it was in North Jersey and New York, and it was to be an account executive for the Apartment Guide. And for those who are unfamiliar, there used to be a magazine called an Apartment Guide, and that was placed for free at Blockbusters. Oh, wait, let me back up. Blockbusters were at a time where you go get videos before there were Netflix and other options. So Kmart and shopping grocery stores, but there were auto traders or boat traders.
So that was like the
Apartment Guides.
ILS, but
That's it. But there was no ILS.
There was no ILS, yeah.
In fact, I remember when I first started and I was learning how to sell this product and what to do and all, because I would just drive around. I had maps, old school maps. We didn't have an email when I first started. Quickly, we got email, but I had an old like MSN account for myself that I used. But yeah, and this was 99. So I was, you'd look at your map and figure out where you were going to go, and you'd go into an apartment community and you'd ask to speak to them about their advertising, and they would either sit down with you, blow you off, or let you know that they don't handle it and give you a contact somewhere else. And I quickly left and went to their competitor, For Rent. And by the way, by the time I went to For Rent magazine, it was September 5th of 2001, and 11 days later, the trade centers fell, and I'm in New York. And I only say that because that market was so affected, real estate was so affected. So there was a lot of opportunity for sales in marketing of apartment communities. So I certainly credit that with a very heavy heart. I mean, I was downtown at the time, with how that influenced my career, because I was selling ads like crazy. I won President's Club every year. I'd like to say I'm a hard worker, but that was a market that was soft all of a sudden. So there was a lot more advertising opportunity for those that were selling. And but I do remember, and the funny part was that when we were selling these pages, you would buy the cover or 2 pages, but whatever you wanted to buy, we'd also explain that there was a value add. It was a listing in this internet thing that's coming up. It's called the apartmentguide.com. or forrent.com, or which eventually was, all the other ILSs. But it was so tertiary, this listing, that half the time if they went on wrong, nobody even cared, because nobody was using the internet that way for searching and finding homes. I mean, that way you found a home back then. I used to live in Manhattan, and then when I was moving to North Jersey, well before all this, I did the same thing. I went and got one of those magazines, sat on the train, opening it up, noting which pages I'm most interested in, calling them, setting up the appointments, and driving out to see them. And that was how we were doing things. So I didn't start, like I said, in a traditional environment. I started on that sales side and did that, opened up a couple of markets, handled multi-markets, not called multi-site. I've been on this end of the industry for a while now. And eventually had everything in the Northeast, which again, I thought was a lot of fun. And I traveled a lot. But then I really it was when I was saying I got married that one time. I kind of wanted to find a little more, I'm not going to call it balance, because I feel like balance always gives something up. But, I was trying to find a way to live differently and have that relationship. So I remember calling the district or regional manager, or whatever it was called then, and explaining, I'm going to give you 6 weeks notice. I love it here. I just want to take some time off, because all I felt like I've ever done is just go, go, go. And I took a summer off. In fact, I was so passionate and didn't want to leave that company. My last day was a Monday. Like, let me do payroll for you. Let me get expenses, let me do your expense report. I didn't want to leave anybody hanging. It wasn't negative, I didn't even know where I'd land. I just figured, let me take some time off. So I did. And when I want to say, when I let one of my advertisers know, because I didn't let people know right away, I didn't want to affect the business that my colleagues had built with me. So when I finally let some know, one of my best advertisers, one of my best clients said, listen, we are interested in talking to you about a sales role, sales and marketing. I just thought, I don't know. I mean, just because I sold apartment guides and, apartments.com, doesn't mean I'm a marketer. Not sure how much I can lend. But it was a group that handles, it's a great company, handles corporate housing and apartment rentals in the same buildings. And they do it themselves. So it's not like they have a third party that handles furnishing. They literally have 25 people on staff, so that half of their 300 unit property, for example, would already be fully furnished, have to run around 70% occupied. You'd pay a daily rate for 30 plus days. So I was selling to traveling or realtors, like people who are, business professionals. So I got to learn that end of the industry, but then I was also handling marketing for apartment rentals. And little by little, I kind of figured out what I liked about apartment rentals. I will say this. Before meeting Melanie, I was very much in my box, which is support role. I got you the leads, right? We got you leads if you guys didn't close them, like that mentality. But Melanie really allowed me to become a little more diverse in the experience, handle some of the communities that were our tougher challenges. And what ended up happening is, I recognize and hold my ILSs accountable as a result, or any of our advertising sources, but providing leads is not the answer alone, right? We've talked about this today. There's so many steps to this process that's the least of my concerns, because the phones ring and people come in, and they always will. But is it the targeted demographic? How are we closing? What do we offer differently? What are we figuring out? How are we conversing? Are we missing that first 3-minute response, et cetera, like we talked about today, which is, again, the power of centralizing an AI and the need for it right now, which I think is where I'm losing sleep about things. How do I make sure we bring it in a way that is progressive and ensures success and provides our team with a better place to work and a way to live, and not have them worry about every little detail, like whether or not they are going to be affected by it, because we don't want to affect them. We want to give them an opportunity to be more successful.
When you think about, it's very clear to me that you really, you enjoy your work, right? You enjoy working. You take a mindset of integrating work and life. Yep. Do you ever see a point, which, we're all going to reach that point at some point, but what is that point in which you won't want to work?
Like retire? Yeah. I've always said I don't want to retire. If I hit the lottery tomorrow, I'm not quitting my job. I will do it differently. I will take my private plane and not leave as early. I think there are a lot of opportunities that might make it even more enjoyable. Probably, Fridays on the boat will be my call day or something like that. I don't know. But, which I would never, ever do. I want my teams to be engaged, and if I'm not engaged, then that's an issue. But I would do it differently. I don't know if it is frowned upon to say this, but I absolutely identify with my career, but I don't see it as a career separate from who I am, right? I just really like it. I really want to be around it. I really do know the family members of my team members. They really do know mine. We do so much right now through Teams and Zoom and things like that. It's not uncommon, and we're working different times and trying to get everything that we need done. It's not uncommon. My husband will pop in and say hello to my marketing director and such. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to integrate, like you said. But I don't know what it looks like. I don't have a plan to retire. In that I wouldn't be interested. And if Melanie retires, and she's promised me it's a long ways away, I don't want her job. I'm not working towards that. I like my niche and I like what I do.
Interesting. Why is that? What?
It's funny. I think I've had the same title my own, my title for 5 or 6 years, something like that. And I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, I have to sit down and we have to have a one-on-one about how I'm going to have a new title and how I'm going to get promoted to things and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know that the best use of my personality and skill set is at the CEO level running RR Living. I would never let it fail. So if there were a need to integrate somebody or do something in a room, obviously. But if Melanie chose to retire, which again, I'm going to knock on wood jokingly and remind her she's given me a while, many, 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 many more years. It's not something I'd throw my hat in the ring for. I don't have any interest in it.
That's very self-aware of you, I feel like.
Oh, I don't think I always was. I worked hard to be self-aware, but I actually remember where years ago, a COO was saying to me, I don't think you have self-awareness. And I actually took courses thinking, I thought I was self-aware, but if somebody outside of me, non-self, thinks I'm not aware, then I am not self-aware. And, or that perception is enough to make me, that's a concern anyway, so whether or not I knew myself to be, or somebody else was questioning it was enough for me to really evaluate it. I did a lot of one-on-ones with that.
I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What does success mean to you and how has that changed over time?
Money has nothing to do. I refuse to put any value on money. Now, I probably, again, for all those owners out there, I will put value on your money. So long as my bills are paid and we are happy and healthy, I don't care. I used to say, if I have it, you have it, right? So I refuse to make money an issue, is how I'll say it personally. I guess success for me is, like I said, waking up and being, if not excited, then not disappointed in what the day holds. And again, there are days that I know I'm going in and we're going to go over some budget numbers and, there's going to be that one that because everybody's got something, that it's not the most pleasant day, but it doesn't faze me anymore because I know that I worked as hard as I could, or again, working hard is kind of negative nowadays. I lifed as best as I could, and nobody wants success more than me. Maybe Melanie, maybe, the rest of our leadership team should be in that same category, but there is no lack of, if we couldn't do it, it couldn't get done, is how I feel. For me, success is, I think, being surrounded by the people who I said are like-minded, who want similarities. I've never, ever had such great people around me. I mean, we've always had good team members. Just feel like we've kind of hit such a stride right now. To the point where we have people asking if we have opportunities, so it's unusual. But for me, no, I think success looks like, I want my niece to be excited and I want to talk to her on Friday nights. And I want to, I kind of like my plan. Success to me is another day I wake up where all of my dogs are still with me. I know that's, but things that I can control. But when it comes to work from a success standpoint, I don't measure it. I don't measure the money part of it. It's not what's important or defining to me. There was a time that I wanted to have a title that I wanted, but I want to enjoy what I do. Whether that is my career, my time with my family, I just want to enjoy it. Just want to live my life to the fullest. If heaven forbid something happened tomorrow, I want to be able to say, I didn't put off living. So not going to retire and suddenly go travel. If I wanted to travel, we'd be traveling. Because I travel for work so much, I want to be home. So yeah, probably success to me is absolutely like when we achieve something that nobody thought we could do. It's that yes moment. And we do. We'll dance around a little bit or, we'll do shout outs and things that, you get to do. Now that I've had a couple of rebrands or new companies that we brought into fruition, not the same as you, not from inception, but that we've had a chance to really, become what we know could make us stand out in the industry, being allowed to do that, and being allowed to be part of the process, because that's not an overnight, result. If you take a company that is working out fine or a community that's doing their job and then ask them to get something to the next level, but they can't even define what that looks like. Maybe it's numbers or maybe it's, it's more appealing curb appeal, whatever it is. I have a vision of what I want it to be. So when you actually get it there and you see it, you can celebrate it and you can bring people along to know what that success is. That's exciting for me. But if somebody said, that's great, I don't really care. I still wanted, 10 more percentages or 10 more, anythings. I'm not losing sleep over it. I did the job better than I think anybody else is going to be able to do it. Not because I'm saying it from an ego perspective. I'm trying to be, just honest about how much I truly think through the decisions that we make. So,
Amy, thank you for
thank
doing
you.
this for me. I was telling the guys here, I was like, yeah, this one's going to be super easy.
That's fun.
And it was. So I really appreciate you chatting with me and sharing.
I loved it. I mean, we were chatting before this and kind of had to stop because we were having such a good conversation. So it was smart to, but no, this has been great. I'm so glad you invited me. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Bye.